side agreements is, they, on FHA, they don't want you to have personal property as part of the agreement, so sometimes they'll have side agreements where people say, well, if you just leave that refrigerator or whatever at no value, and you know, sometimes the loan company makes you take it out of the contract, but you know, that was the agreement that they had, and can't be, you know, side agreements are illegal on FHA contracts, so you can't have them.
And honestly, even more, like I just did a deal with an investor who put $43,000 down payment, you know, 25% down, so not FHA, and we had the seller was going to leave the refrigerator. They made us take it out. So just try to omit all personal property, even something like that.
So how do you get around that?
I wrote an amendment to the contract, striking the refrigerator from it, and then I wrote up an agreement between a buyer and seller saying that the buyer is going to be purchasing the refrigerator from the seller for X dollars.
And was that part of the contract?
No.
No.
That was
How
just
do you
an
do that in
agreement.
That was a
FHA?
conventional
How do you do
contract.
that?
On here, what we do is we do a personal property addendum, and you leave the property at no value. If it has no value, then it has no value with the appraisal. The reason they have this language in here is that people were taking the personal property, you know, they were including the personal property, the refrigerator and detached equipment, like sometimes portable dishwashers, and they were saying this is the part of the value of the house. And then what would happen is they would take all the appliances, and then they would not make their payments, and the banks were left with houses that didn't have appliances because they were taken.
But you can't do that with an FHA, correct? You couldn't do what you did with it, or?
Yes, you can. With an FHA, as long as you state that the property is being left, either at no value or for X amount of dollars.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
That's an agreement between buyer and seller.
It just can't have anything to do with the value of the home.
Okay.
And that's,
When you write it in, you document it, it's at no value.
you write it in, seller agrees to leave refrigerator at no value.
No value.
Yeah, and so that when the appraiser looks at that house, he's not going to add $500 for the refrigerator as part of the value for the property. Okay. And you can see I said see counter. I didn't sign the counter offer, the financing addendum, because I didn't agree with all the terms. I modified it. Okay, agency. Designated seller's agent, designated buyer's agent. She's obviously charging the buyer some type of transaction fee of some sort, because that's the buyer's tenant is checked. You can see that I signed for the seller and for as the licensee assisting the seller. And then this is the prudential franchise affiliate disclosure for Prudential. And then this is that Missouri lease agreement. And everybody who ever wants a lease agreement, this is what you get from me. I have one for Missouri and I have one for Kansas. They're lengthy. They seem like they've got a lot of good detail in them that protects the seller a little bit.
So you don't get this on KCRR? This is yours?
No,
Okay.
this is a Torrey Graham.
Okay.
I got this from a title company, and I thought it was a pretty good one. I use it for properties I lease. You'll see that I have the amount, what the monthly is, $1,350. The terms, the total amount, what $1,350 adds up to in over a 12-month period. I did not collect a damage deposit.
So did you just choose to use this one? I mean, we typically would just use KCRR.
KCR doesn't have one. That's what I'm saying.
There isn't.
There isn't one. There is no lease agreement because there's liability in lease agreements, you know. So they probably don't want to have anything to do with it. That, you know, I got this from a title company. I think it's pretty darn thorough. You know, with any lease agreement, you should review it and see if it's applicable to what you're trying to lease.
So it'd be up to the seller to come up with one of these.
Well, they're not going to. This reason you call me and I'll give you a copy of something that's, it's been reviewed by an attorney. I mean, I've looked at it pretty thoroughly. It's got all kinds of details of what happens. Like
an office, at least an office.
You do.
Well, leasing an office would be a little bit different than the rules on this thing, because this is definitely geared toward a single-family dwelling. Okay, maintenance repair rules, tell them everything. It talks about what's acceptable and not acceptable in terms of the conditions of the property. Keep on going, it talks about inspections of the premise. Okay, so attorney's fee, recording agreements, just everything to do with the lease. And who it's going to go to. And tenant to deposit $500 for a pet deposit for 2 outdoor pets. Deposit will apply toward the purchase price at closing. Forfeiture if closing does not occur.
Additional provisions.
And then I got my name and their name. Then here you got to have, because it's our listing, then I have to have that seller's estimated worksheet showing what everything's going to cost. I had to sign with myself. And then I have the 210 warranty stuff. So my deductible, that's $445 is what I paid, and so I think the deductible on that one would be $100. But I have it in the file. And then, of course, you have to have the Breda form. So I signed it with myself. And then you have to have the exclusive right to sell agreement. 5/1 to 5/31. So if this thing doesn't close on 5/31, then my listing is expired. So if it doesn't close on 5/31 like it's supposed to, then I need to extend my listing with myself, with Weichert. So that's something that as you look through a contract, you got to think, okay, when's this thing supposed to close? Because if it closes like in a year, then my listing agreement will not be valid. I'll have to get it extended. I'll talk to myself and see if I can make that happen.
So the agent on this that sold this will not get her commission until this closes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so she did all this, and then she has to wait a year, maybe it'll close.
Well, 6 months. I gave her people an incentive to close in 6 months. $1,350.
Didn't you say back then there too, she marked a box that she did charge a fee to them?
Yeah,
for
but that's
doing
only
this
gonna,
for her?
but it's only gonna get paid at the time of closing.
Okay,
It's like your
it
transaction
won't be
fee.
now.
Correct. Okay, so then you look through here, listing services. You see I marked through, I'm not going to retain anything as the broker for the deposit. Now this comes into play, this line number 72. Now you're representing the seller, okay? And you get a $10,000 earnest money deposit. And here I just marked through it. But what if I had put in 50%?
And you get 5.
Then I get what?
Half of that.
Half of it. As the broker. Okay, now what does that paragraph say about the balance of the money? Let's pretend for a minute. Let's pretend that the commission that I agreed to get paid on this was $4,000. And I ended up with $5,000 from getting 50% of the 10.
So the seller would get the 1,000 over,
No, it's
no, the
consumed.
9, let's see,
It's eaten
the
up.
6.
Corey, I have
Yeah.
a $10,000 earnest money deposit. The deal goes south. Seller gets to keep the earnest